Today, I'm going to show you how to set up your repricing rules, also known as strategies and Aura, in a very easy way, and also show you how you can take all of these custom repricing rules that you made and put them into a workflow. Now, this is really big for me in particular because with the old repricer I was using, I was actually not doing conditional age repricing based upon inventory age. And so today I'm going to show you how I've kind of made that switch in my business. And the goal here is to be more aggressive with the books that are fresher or newer, books that have just showed up at the Amazon warehouse. And then as they start aging, get older and older, actually figuring out a plan to get rid of them, or in other words, to get as much of my money back as I can. And so I'm really excited for this video. Now, this is actually video number 3 in a 3-part series. Maybe there'll be more parts down the road. The first video was me explaining why I switched from Be Cool over to Aura, all the cool bells and whistles that I'm really enjoying with it right now. Video number 2 is actually how to get all of your min and max prices, as well as your cost prices from whatever repricer you're using over to Aura in a very easy way. And again, this video is going to be about how to set up those custom rules, the rules that I'm using as of the recording right now. And by the way, if you are interested in signing up for Aura, link down below in the description does support the channel. I do appreciate it. Let's go ahead and work on our strategies. So you'll see that I actually have 4 strategies here. 0 to 3 months, 4 to 6 months, 7 to 9 months, and 10 months plus, okay? And so what we're going to be doing is actually creating custom roles. And the way that you do that is come up here to the top right, which is called Add Strategy. And because I sell on Amazon, we'll click Sell on Amazon. Now, there are a couple of different role-based settings as well as an AI tool, which you can use if you want. I prefer just to have my own custom roles. So I'm going to click on Custom Role and click Continue. And now what we're going to do again is actually try to be as competitive as possible. Try to make the most money that we can with the freshest inventory, with the books that have just showed up at the Amazon warehouse. And what I'm going to do is actually call it the 0 to 3 month rule. And you actually won't be able to name it until you're done with this whole process. But I just kind of wanted to show you how you'd actually get to this, how to get to the starting part. Because if I go back, my 0 to 3 month rule, if I edit it, I'm going to essentially just go through everything line by line so that you can copy it if you want to. So in the 0 to 3 month, what I'm going to do is actually compete with the buy box only. And I'm going to be competing against featured sellers, which means people who have buy box eligibility. Okay. Now, I'm not going to exclude Amazon as a competitor, back order sellers, feedback rate, people with a lower feedback rating, sellers with longer handling time. You can if you want to do that. For example, you want to, let's say not compete with somebody who has 72% feedback or lower. That's kind of just a random number. But if you want to do that, you can. For me, I just want to sell the book and I want to make good money on it, right? And again, all this is going to come down to making sure that you read keeper graphs, set a profitable minimum and a maximum price. In other words, you actually bought a good book and it will sell for a profit. But I'm also going to compete against all used items. So I'm not going to compete only against, like, let's say my copy's in good condition. I'm not just going to compete in good condition. I'm going to compete no matter what the condition is. Now, I'm going to go over to the pursuit. What's going to happen is once we are pricing against the competition to win the buy box, we're essentially going to undercut by 2 cents. So in other words, the goal is to win the buy box. We're going to continue to undercut somebody by 2 cents until we're able to get the buy box. And that's what we have set up there. Now, why 2 cents? Well, the reason why I like it to be 2 cents is just because when you're repricing against someone else, they might reprice against you. And so if you just kind of jump a little bit below them, it might help you win the buy box a little bit faster. May or may not. I don't really know if it really helps that much. It could be one penny, 2 cents, 10 cents. It's really up to you. And a lot of people are going to be, people who don't understand what we do as online book arbitrage sellers. A lot of people who do thrifting will be mad at us that we're undercutting the buy box winner. But the reality of it is we're already picking a minimum and a maximum range that's profitable. We don't really care where the book sells. We're going to make profit regardless. So whether or not us undercutting actually does lower prices, which it probably does, whether or not, that is a bad thing, it doesn't really matter is what I'm saying. The goal is to sell the book, sell within a profitable range. So I'm going to undercut by 2 cents because the goal is to win the buy box. Now, the really cool thing about Aura here is that you can have a rule or you can do something when the buy box is suppressed. So sometimes on the Amazon webpage, there's no buy box. So what do you want to do when there's no buy box? Well, what I'm going to do is take whatever my current price is within my minimum and maximum range, which I'll have, again, given for that book specifically, which is unique. I'm going to undercut that current price that I have by $2. So for example, my current price is $52. Well, I'm not winning the buy box, nor is anyone else winning the buy box. Now I'm going to undercut and go to 50. Then I'm going to go to 48. Then I'm going to go to 46. Again, my minimum price is going to be the floor. So it's never going to go below my minimum price. And that's a really important thing you need to understand is that when we are undercutting, we're only ever going to undercut to the minimum price, which is what you get to decide. So we're not having some default rule for minimum price like it's, $5 or $10. Like we actually are saying Based upon historical selling data, looking at Keepa, this is the minimum I'm willing to accept for this book. Now, whenever you have competition below your min price, with this first rule in 0 to 3 months, we're actually going to just raise our price to the max price. And the reason for that is if, let's say, the competition is below our minimum price and we just take the price of our book and immediately go to the minimum price, well, what you could have is somebody end up buying your book at that much lower price when in reality, this is a really fresh, really new book that you have that hasn't been in inventory very long. You probably don't want to sell it closer to the min that early on. Like, obviously, as time goes on, sure, you're happy to sell it at the minimum price because it is profitable, but you do obviously want to make as much money as you can while also not sacrificing the sell-through rate, right? When the competition matches our min price, we're just going to go right back up to the max price. And when your price reaches your min price, we're also going to go up to the max price. So the idea here is that if we are competing with another seller and I'm winning the buy box, they undercut me, and then I undercut them, it just goes on, and we continue to kind of move each other with who wins the buy box. The goal of going to the minimum price or going from the minimum price back to maximum price is try to raise that back up. So if we're going basically in a range of like 40 to 50, like let's say that's the min price and this is the max price. The goal is that if we keep repricing from 50 down to 40, once we get to 40, just go right back up to 50 in hopes that the other person repricing against you also goes up to 50 because now they realize they're $10 cheaper than you. So the goal here is to kind of play this forever game of almost like a teeter-totter. It's like, all right, we start up here, we go all the way down, and then we go all the way back up, all the way down, all the way back up. And the goal is that somewhere in this range, you're very likely to sell the book as long as you priced it correctly. Now, how to price when you're out of stock, it doesn't really matter because you're out of stock, but I just said use the max price. Again, that doesn't really matter there. Now, when you go over to maintenance, the really cool thing here is that you can actually change what you do when you win the buy box. So before I used to have the do not reprice when I win the buy box. Now what I'm doing is saying whenever I win the buy box, try to raise the price by 25 cents within 25 cents of the person who's potentially next eligible for the buy box. Now this could backfire on you as well because if you are trying to continually raise your price after you won the buy box, what could happen is that you momentarily or you do lose the buy box for a little while, and that actually can negatively hurt you because somebody could have come along that time when you've lost the buy box and they could have bought your book. So this is something I'm experimenting with, but it's pretty cool that you can actually raise your price once you're in the buy box. And this is a rule that we're going to change once we go to the conditional repricing or once we go to the rules for older, for books that are older. In other words, we won't do this anymore once the book's like, let's say 6 months or 9 months old or so on. Now, for the min and max price, I'm going to put a manual number. Now, if you wanted to, you could do it by profit margin or by fixed profit. So you could say, hey, I want my minimum fixed profit to be $5. Now, what that would mean or entail is that you need to have a buy cost for every book that you have. And if you don't know how to have a buy cost for every book that you have, the easiest way to do that with automation is just to use the Amazon order history reporter and then use some VLOOKUP formulas in order to sync the data with Aura, upload it as a file. And I went over all of that in a very, very, very easy way to understand in the last video 2 of the series. But in order to do that, you actually will need to have a cost price for each book. If you want to do it for ROI and profit margin, you will also need to have an actual purchase price or a cost price for each book because those are dependent on the price of the book. Now, here's what I'll say. There are some really cool things that you could do with the minimum and maximum prices in terms of ROI for each book that you buy. The only thing that you do need to understand, however, is that as your book gets older in age and the book still hasn't sold, what has likely happened with that book is it has just tanked in price. In other words, the market on that book is different than what you thought it was. And if everything is based upon that purchase price, and now the cost price is actually significantly higher than what all the other current offers are on the listing, your minimum and maximum price, even if it is based upon ROI or profit margin or the amount of profit per book, is going to be actually way higher than it should be. So that's the reason why I'm not doing ROI as for my minimum maximum prices. It's why I always will just do it manually. Now, yes, that is harder because now what you'll need to do is always change your minimum and maximum price manually, and that takes more time. But again, you don't have to do that like every day. You could certainly do it in time intervals. You can do that in 3-month time intervals, 6-month time intervals. So you can change it whenever you want. But that's basically the reason why I'm going manual with all of the rules here. When you're done with that, you can go and click save, and you then have the opportunity to name it as well once you've saved it at the end. So I've gone ahead and named it 0 to 3 months just to make that as simple as possible. Now what I'm going to do is actually show you the 4 to 6 month rule. And again, you just do the same thing, add the strategy, and I'll just go through it maybe a little bit quicker here. The biggest difference here is that now we're competing against the lowest FB offer. We're no longer actually going to compete against or try to win for the buy box. So what this means is even if somebody is in the buy box at a price that is higher than what our current price is, and there's also other FBA sellers lower than that price, we're going to compete against the lowest FBA offer, not necessarily the buy box price. Now, in most cases, the lowest FBA offer is the buy box winner. Not all the time, but many times. So all we're saying here is that if for whatever reason somebody else is in the buy box and there's a couple of people who are lower than them, we're still going to compete against the lowest FBA offer, not necessarily the buy box winner. Now you might be asking, well, why change it like that? Well, again, most of the time, the lowest FBA offer is the buy box. And now we're getting from 4 to 5 to 6 months old. We're talking about a book that you have capital tied up in. You're wanting to try to get your money back. In other words, sell the book and make a profit. And so the goal is over time, we're going to be increasingly become more aggressive in probably going closer to the minimum price rather than the maximum price that we have. And, to try to get sell-through rate, to try to get our capital back to buy more books. Now, I'm going to have everything else the same here on this first page. Now, under pursuit, what we're going to do is how to price against competition. Same thing. We're going to undercut by 2 cents. Again, this is going to be the lowest FBA offer as well. When there's no competition, we're just going to set to the max price. So for example, let's say our min price is, let's make sure that's not so big. Let's say our min price is 40 and our max price is 50. And let's say we're the only FBA offer. Well, essentially, we're just going to go to $50. So that's all that means is, again, this book is 4, 5, or 6 months old. Still really not a book that's that old. So I'm willing to sit at the max price even 4, 5, 6 months after I've got the book at Amazon. Now, when the competition is below your min price, at this point, we're just going to ignore the competition. So the reason for that is because if we decide to go to the minimum price, we would just be very, very aggressive on selling the book so quickly, in my opinion. So again, if we go back to 40 and 50 as the minute max price, if there is some FBA offer at, let's say, $32 and you set it to the min price, it just means you're being really aggressive with trying to sell the book. And I think, well, at least what I'm doing is that a little bit later on in the next roll, once the book has now gotten to like, let's say 7, 8, or 9 months old, then I'm willing to basically just go to the minimum price, if that makes sense. Now, when the competition matches your min price, we're going to go back to the max price. Okay, so simply what that means is if we go back to 40 and 50 as the min and max, as soon as we both go down to 40, we're just going to go right back up to 50. Again, the book is only 4, 5, or 6 months old. Still really not that old of a book, especially when you're talking about a lot of talking about the margins that we have in online book arbitrage. When your price reaches your min price, we're going to go and use a max price. And again, this out of stock button really doesn't matter, but I would just have it at max price. Now, here's how this changes for the buy box. We're no longer at this stage going to try to be cute and try to see how much higher we can win the buy box at. Here, we're just going to say don't reprice. So once we've acquired the buy box, don't reprice, just leave it there. We won the buy box, that's great. Don't want to do anything else. Once again, we're just going to manually input our min and max price. So you're going to go and save it. You can go ahead and name it whatever you want. I have it 4 to 6 months so that I know what the rule does. Now we're going to go to the 7 to 9 months. Same process. You're going to set up the strategy. Here, what we're now doing is lowest FBA and then merchant fulfilled seller. So the idea is that we're going to compete against the lowest FBA seller. If there is no lowest FBA seller, meaning there's no competition, then we'll go for the merchant fulfilled offer. And again, we're going to be competing against all used items. Same thing, we're going to try to price 2 cents below whoever that person is. And again, everyone's gonna be like, Joji, you're price tanking. Remember, we are setting a floor. The book is not going to go below whatever price you set. So if I say the minimum price is 40 and the maximum price is 50, the lowest the book will ever go is 40. It doesn't matter whatever my undercut by a penny, undercut by $1, it doesn't matter. The lowest it will ever go is 40. In other words, we are setting the floor price for that book as low as it can go. Okay, but we do want to be aggressive. At least I do at this point, 7, 8, and 9 months later after buying the book. I do actually want to be aggressive and go 2 cents under. When there's no competition, though, we're not gonna reprice. So, for example, let's say 40 and 50 is the minute max price. Let's say there's nobody, no other person on the listing. Whatever our price is, we'll just leave it there. So if our price is 47 at the point in time, we'll just leave it at 47. We won't do any repricing. Now, this is the biggest shift from going from 4, 5, and 6 months, now 7 months and on, is now we're going to be pricing at our minimum price with a couple of rules here. So when the competition is below your minimum price, we're now going to go to the minimum price. So let's say 40 and 50 is the minute max price. There's an FBA seller at 37. That's below our minimum price. And now we're just going right to the minimum price. Okay. When the competition matches your minimum price, again, we're going to use our min price. When our price reaches our min price, we're going to keep it there. So this is also the biggest difference now at 7, 8, 9 months is once we get down to the min price at 40, we're not doing anything. We're not increasing its price back up. We're just leaving it right there, leaving it at 40. And that's again, because we're now at this point saying for some reason the book hasn't sold. We now need to be much more aggressive with the price that we want to list it at so that we do actually sell the book. Again, how to price when you're out of stock, it doesn't really matter, but you can say use max price. Now for maintenance, again, we're going to say once we won the buy box, actually do not reprice. And essentially, this is going to overrule the other rules. So for example, if for whatever reason you do have your min at 40 and your max at 50, remember how we said if somebody's below us at 37, we would just go to the min price? Well, if you're, let's say, at, I don't know, winning the buy box at $45, which is in between those two numbers, you would actually just stay at 45. In other words, you would stay in the buy box. So a cool little feature there. Now, again, we're going to go manual on this. We're going to save it. I went ahead and named it 7 to 9 months. And now finally, we're going to get to 10 months plus, which I call liquidate inventory. And you can actually see I do have a lot of inventory that's actually 10 months and older. And you might be thinking, wow, Joji, why do you have so many books that are old? It's because I never had inventory age repricing rules up until now. And I'm really thinking that this is going to help a lot. So let me go and edit this. Now the competition type is the lowest price overall. So it doesn't even matter if it's an FBA seller, merchant, like whatever the lowest price is, we're going to compete against that again within the min and max price. So I have all used items here, and we're going to go to the pursuit. Here we're pricing $1 under. So we're going to undercut by 99 cents. Again, only undercutting until we get to the minimum price, and then we'll just stay at the minimum price. Really the goal here is that we just want to be at the minimum price. So whatever, let's say we set our minimum and maximum price, when the book got there, and for some reason we don't change it for the next, 10 months. Well, now all of a sudden we're saying just sell the book at the minimum price. It was still profitable based upon your purchase price. Just sell at that price, get rid of the book, and take that capital and buy more books. Now let's go over to maintenance. Again, what we're gonna do is once we have acquired the buy box, now we're gonna do the opposite. So we're not going to try to raise the price to get a higher buy box price. We're not going to keep it the same. We're actually still going to undercut until we try to sell it until we get to that mid price. So in other words, what we're going to do is try to always go 2 cents under whatever the buy box price would be. Same thing, I'm gonna have manual min and max prices. And again, why, Joji, would you do that and not have an ROI based rule? Because if you have a book that you bought 10 months ago and it still hasn't sold, what probably has happened is that the price that you bought the book for is way higher than what the current market for that book is. So maybe let's say you bought the book 10 months ago for like $27 and you thought, you would have a min price for like 50 and 60, something like that. Well, all of a sudden the market, right? This was in the beginning. Now all of a sudden the market's way different. Maybe you can buy the offer for like $13. So if you have ROI based upon this purchase price, is going to be way higher than whatever the actual competitive prices are on that listing. In other words, it's not as simple as just having a min and max price based upon ROI, unless you are then going and changing in your purchase price, which would then just mess everything else up with reporting. So this is why I'm doing it as manual. But again, if you are going to do min and max prices based upon ROI, I would actually recommend doing that from the beginning, starting at 0 to 3 months, not just doing it later on. Now, there are a couple implications here so the first thing to understand is that there are different rules based upon how old the inventory is. Now, a lot of you are doing seasonal book flips because of Victor Gallegos, and understand that, right? If you are doing seasonal book flips, depending on how long out from the season you're buying the book, that impacts what the price of that book is going to be. So, for example, if it's January and you're buying Christmas books, they're not going to get there, or they're likely not going to be really people buying it for another year, right? Until December. In other words, all those books are going to be sitting at whatever your min price is. So just understand that there's no one size fit all. There's no perfect, plan for this. There's pros and cons to everything. And that's definitely probably one of the cons is the seasonality to it. The good thing is what you could always do is, have repricing off for any individual ASIN that you want. And you could always use the Amazon automated repricer if you want, which is a free repricer. So you can still get repricing done on that if you want. But what I'm going to show you how to do is actually set up a workflow. In other words, so that all of this is automated. As soon as books turn 3 months to 4 months, it switches to this rule. As soon as it turns from 6 months to 7 months, it turns to this rule. And as soon as it turns from 9 months to 10 months, it switches to this rule. And again, you can see how many listings are assigned to these rules, and it's because of it's automated. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really enjoying, using Aura right now. So we're gonna go over here to the workflow. And the really cool thing about Aura, again, is that, and I think this is one of the main selling points, is that early stage is only $27, which is great. And the cool thing about it being $27 is that it is unlimited listings. Now, if you go over to let's say Be Cool, they do have a $25 price plan, which is cheaper, but you can only have up to 1,000 listings. So I really like the fact that you can have unlimited listings. And I also like the fact that you can set up workflows for conditional age repricing. So you actually at the $27 rate have the ability to have two workflows set up, which is what I'm going to show you how to create workflows. I actually have three workflows right here because I'm actually at this plan. I'm at 97 a month because I do over 10,000 a month in revenue. But you can definitely operate on only two workflows, which I'll show you. Like you don't need this one right here at 1 a.m. reprice the max price. I'll show you how to do it, but you don't necessarily need that. Okay. So at $27, if you're under 10,000 in monthly sales, which most people are, you can have unlimited listings. You can have two workflows. So you can access conditional age repricing. Whereas, for example, Be Cool, you don't have inventory age conditions until you get to $50 a month. And even at $50 a month, you only have 5,000 listings. So all that means is like, if you have, I had less than 5,000 listings, but this is a reprice listing. So unless you're going and deleting all of your inventory that's sold, technically it's still being repriced, even though it's not in stock. So oftentimes I'd have to go in and like delete, listings so that I didn't have to pay for the $100 a month plan. So again, I'm not here to say that Be Cool is bad. Be Cool is great. I used it. I enjoyed it. I'm just finding something that's better for me personally, and this is what I'm using. So here at the 97 plan, again, up to 50,000 in revenue. I don't plan to go over 50,000 in revenue likely in, any given month. So let's go and show you how to set up a workflow. I have three here, but technically you would have two with that plan. And the first workflow that we're going to set up is actually to set new listings to whatever your rule is. So what we're going to do here is click on add a workflow. Now, again, we're repricing on Amazon. So click Amazon and continue. The first thing that we're going to do is add an event. So what we're going to say is whenever you have a new listing, okay, so this says automate your workflow when a new listing is added to Aura. Whenever, let's say you ship the books to your prep center and your prep center ships them to the Amazon warehouse and then they show up in your inventory. Whenever that shows up in your inventory, it then shows up over in Aura. So whenever that listing shows up in Aura, we want there to be an automation with it to automatically be set to repricing. So what we're going to do here is click on add new listing. Then what we're going to do is click on continue, and on workflow, this is what we want the action to be. We want the action to be to toggle repricing. So click on toggle repricing, click on continue, and then you want to say enable. What this means is as soon as a new listing shows up in Aura, enable repricing. Now, again, nothing's going to happen until you have a minimum and maximum price set. All it's doing is enabling the repricing so you don't have to click the little button after you've put your minimum max price in to enable repricing. So it just is going to automate that and make it quicker for you, which is great. Now, we also not only want to do that, we want to set a strategy. So that strategy here is going to be 0 to 3 months because of the fact that the book just came into inventory. It's technically 0 to 3 months old. So now we're going to say set the strategy to 0 to 3 months. We're going to click continue. You can go ahead and name it, and voila, you're done. That workflow I named as new listings are set to, it says Joji's custom rule. That's what I named as 0 to 3 months before, but just imagine they said new listings are set to 0 to 3 months. That's what it means. Okay, now the second workflow that we're going to go ahead and build is inventory age repricing. This means that from 0 to 3 months, we have this set of rules. As soon as it turns 4 months old, it's going to transition over to this other set of rules. To 6 months, this, 7 months, this rule, then to 10 months, this rule, and so on. So the way that we're going to do that, again, is add a workflow, click on Amazon, click continue, and you're going to need to add the event here. Okay, and the event here is going to be based upon a schedule. So click on schedule, click continue, and we want this to actually happen every single hour. So you could have it happen once a day, once a week, every 3 hours, 6. I'm just going to have it happen every hour. So every hour, I think it's on the top of the hour, every day during the week, this process is going to happen where Aura is searching your books and figuring out how old they are. So every hour it's going to say, okay, how old are your books? Okay. Based upon how old they are, it goes into this bucket. If it's 0 to 3 months, it goes to that bucket. If it's 4 to 6 months, it goes to this bucket. But it's doing this every hour. So eventually, as time goes on, probably every day you'll have a book that switches from being, 3 months old to 4 months old. So now all of a sudden Aura says, okay, now put it in this bucket. So we're going to click add there. Now what we're going to do is click on continue, and we're going to go to the workflow. Now this part is a little bit tricky, but just bear with me. We're first going to use what's called a filter block because we need to nest some actions underneath it. I'm going to break it down, make it super simple. Don't worry. Click on continue. What we want to do is filter by the age of inventory. So click on this age of inventory button. And what we're going to say is that whatever we have more than 0 units of, meaning whatever we have in inventory, whatever we have at least 1 unit of or more, we specifically want to have 0 to 30 days, 31 to 60 days, and 61 to 90 days selected. In other words, we're going to set up our rule for the first 3 months. Okay, so once you've got the first 3 months selected, click on add. And now we need to nest the action under it, meaning, well, what do we want to do with that inventory? Anything that's 0 to 3 months old, what do we want to do with it? We want to set it to a repricing rule or set it to a strategy. So click on strategy. And we want that strategy to be 0 to 3 months. Now click add. Now this is the most important part, is you have to nest it under that filter block. So you simply go in and click on this, drag it over, boom. What this means is whenever you have inventory that's between 0 to 3 months old, boom, set the strategy 0 to 3 months old. Now we're not done yet because now we need it to transition once it's over 3 months to go to 4 months. And for example, when it's over 6 months to transition to 7 months and so on. So we're going to click on the add button and we're going to do the same thing over again. We're going to click the filter block, continue. We're going to scroll down by filter by age of inventory. Same thing. When you have more than 0 units of this thing, now what we're going to select is that we are wanting this to happen after the 3 months is up. So this is going to be 3 months to 6 months, 91 days to 180 days. We're again going to click add because what we want to do is as soon as those books are over 3 months old, we want to set the strategy. We want that strategy to be set to 4 to 6 months. Boom, add. Now, again, really important, you have to nest the strategy. Take this, boom, put it right there. Now we're going to continue the same thing. As soon as that book is now over 6 months old, it's now 7 months, we want to switch to the next filter. So we're going to add the filter block. Let's continue. We're going to filter by age of inventory. And now what we're going to say is as soon as this book is 181 days to 270 days, we're going to do the next thing, which is add and click on the plus button and set the strategy. We want that strategy to also be the 7 to 9 months. Boom, add. Again, you're going to go ahead and nest that underneath there. And then we're going to do that one more time, filter the block. And again, I'm sorry if I'm going fast here just because this video is really, really long. And now we're going to say, as soon as this is now 10 months or older, 271 days or older, boom, add that. And the goal is we're wanting this to set the strategy to our 10 months plus, which is our liquidate inventory. Again, nest that out. Boom, you've got that set up. So based upon the age of the inventory, it's going to be set to a specific strategy. And again, you can change any of the strategies that you want. You can have it just like mine if you want. You can have it completely different. It doesn't really matter. I'm just showing you how you can change the price of your inventory based upon the age of it, which is something that I wasn't able to do before. Or I didn't figure out or know how to do, which is what I now know how to do. And I think that's going to make a huge impact. So then you'd go to continue, you go ahead and name it. And again, what's going to happen is every hour of every day, Aura is going to check to make sure with the age of the inventory and then put it in a specific repricing rule based upon its inventory age. Really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and go back because I already have mine. And so you can see I have my 2 workflows here and those are enabled as on the status, inventory age repricing. And I also have my new listings are set to 0 to 3 months. Now, again, if you are at this first early page stand, you only have 2 workflows. Those are the 2 workflows that I'd recommend is set the new listings to be automatically repriced and then have your inventory age repricing set up. Now, once you do get to that point of when you have 97, you're paying $97 because you're doing over 10,000 a month in sales, then you have up to 5 workflows and you can add this other workflow, which again, probably doesn't make that much of a difference, but I have it on just because why not? And this is at 1 a.m. reprice to the max price. The goal here is really simple. At a dead time during the day when pretty much everyone's sleeping and no one's probably buying books, just take whatever the minimum price is and rise it to the maximum price for 30 minutes so that anyone else I'm competing with ideally also comes up with me and then we can start this roller coaster ride all the way back down. Now we're only going to do this specifically for books that I believe are 6 months. Yeah, 6 months or younger. As soon as they're over 6 months old, we're not going to do that. So essentially what we're going to do here again is add a workflow. We're doing this on Amazon. We're going to add the event. And what we're going to say is we want a schedule to happen. So what we're going to say is we're going to say every day. So daily at the time period of 1 a.m. So this is military time. So 1 a.m. This is going to be in Los Angeles or America. So if you're on the East Coast, it probably says East Coast time. So you probably do 4 a.m. But at 1 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is the West Coast, or 4 a.m. on the East Coast, we want this workflow to happen. So we're going to click continue. We want that workflow to be that we want pause repricing, click continue, and we want to pause repricing. I'm going to say for 30 minutes because everyone's reprice is probably going to reprice within 30 minutes. And I'm going to say go to my max price and click add. Okay. Now, not only that, I actually do want to make sure that this is only for books of specific inventory age. So I actually did that a little bit backwards. And what I do need to do is actually create I need to nest it. So I'm actually going to exit it out first. Sorry about that. I'm first going to do a filter block and say that I want this only based upon inventory age. So anything that is 0 to 6 months. So that'd be 0 days to 180 days. It has more than 1 unit inventory in. I have the filter block. For any of those, I want to pause repricing. I want to pause repricing for 30 minutes. And then I want to use the max price. And again, I'm going to go ahead and filter, or I'm going to go ahead and nest that underneath it. So again, this means that anything under 6 months old at 1 a.m. every single day is going to automatically go to the maximum price and stay there for 30 minutes. And then repricing is going to be re-enabled. And then all the other rules that we have set up are going to happen. And then you can click continue. And then boom, you have yourself the same 3 rules, the same 3 strategies that I have. I really hope this video helped everyone out there. It's certainly helping me out. Again, if you do want to support the channel, link down below in the description. You can sign up for a free trial of Aura. I really do recommend it. I think it's a great software, especially for a great repricer for anyone who's just starting out. It's pretty cheap for most people, and you can do really cool things with it. That's all I have for you today. If you liked the video, make sure you leave a comment down below, hit the thumbs up button, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.